Hey everyone, welcome again to More Layers. I'm Seth Mariano.
And I'm Jordan Smith. And if you are new to us, what Seth and I have been doing as of recent is kind of going into a mini series of sorts with different shows. Not too long ago, we went through the first three seasons and the first film of SpongeBob, where the series was originally supposed to end. And as of the past couple of weeks or so, we've been covering a cartoon that we both grew up on, Arthur. And as of now, we've gotten through season one and the first half or third of season two. So for today's episode, we're going to go over the next 10 or so pairs of episodes and see how far we get.
Yeah, and the second half of the second season kicks off with the story of DW's dear friend, in which DW, the younger sister, finds a deer on a family weekend camping trip and becomes very close with it. And she wants to take him home, but her parents explain, "Oh, you can't do that, it's illegal." I don't remember honestly watching it. I just have the description up here to kind of inform my saying about it, but I do know that the deer does appear as a sort of callback in a later episode. I'd rather read it myself.
Yeah, I don't remember that offhand, and I vaguely remember this episode. The biggest thing that I think of is how there have been times where my family would be walking on a trail in some forest somewhere, or just in a place where wild animals would be a lot more prominent. And every once in a while I might see a chipmunk or a rabbit or something to that effect. And me being about the age that DW was, I'd be like, hey, if we catch one, can we keep one?
Yeah. It's kind of funny. Just this past weekend, me and few other friends of mine were in a park where we saw squirrel, I think a chipmunk, and there was one small deer that we saw in the woods. So yeah, kind of funny timing.
Yeah, what do you know?
Yeah.
And at least for a couple of years in the house that I grew up in, we'd have this patch in our backyard where rabbits would kind of dig a little pit for themselves and live in that under some of the plants. And once in a while, walking around back there, we would see one of the babies. And as much as I wanted to, my parents would urge me not to touch them.
Yeah. Yeah. I've lost count of the times, through our backyard, I've seen, deer and turkeys and the occasional fox or something pass.
I was about to say, you probably see a fox every once in a while there, too.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, actually, where I am now, with the house I'm living in surrounded by open fields, not too long ago I did see a small family of foxes kind of playing around and just having a good time, whatever they were doing. I want to say there were 3, maybe 4 young ones. But it was still quite a sight to see, because usually if I do see a fox, there's only one. So this was a nice little experience.
Yeah, interesting. And then the season continues with Buster Hits the Books, in which Buster has to do a book report, but he doesn't have the commitment, the study habits or whatever to stick to an entire book. And of course, other kids try to help him, but he can't seem to get invested in anything. But then eventually he does find one he can really get into.
And to get an idea of just how not committed he is to reading a book, they got so far as to give him a very simple book that just listed a bunch of things that were blue. And only after reading the first couple of pages where it would say, the sky is blue. the ocean is blue. He just falls asleep.
Man. Yeah. But was there ever a book, Jordan, that you were maybe required to read for school, but you really got invested in on your own terms?
Let's see. There were definitely a few books I had to read during school, for example, especially when it came to something like summer reading. When it comes to one that I actually got invested in,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there was one that I was really intrigued by reading, and I think part of the reason for that is because I found that I was less interested in something when I felt like I had to do it.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense.
But I did occasionally find a book that I enjoyed reading, not necessarily through school, but, the Narnia books.
Sure.
There's this book series called Warriors
Yeah.
that's centered around cats that, oddly enough, grabbed my attention.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like how Buster is,
Yeah.
in the sense that by the end he says that he just never really found a book he liked. But once he found one that he liked, he was fully committed and he read all the way through it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I am.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, reading, I guess I have probably a similar to Buster's hit or miss attention span. I mean, I have found maybe a few that I've liked, and even maybe like on one occasion or so for nostalgic reasons, or because there's a lull in activity at my work, I will or something, I will. There was this one book I remembered from high school that I ran into and picked up and flipped through a little bit, and even on my own read from the Amazon sample. And so maybe I didn't like any of the books I read for school that much, but there weren't, I don't think, too many terrible ones.
Now, are you like me where as you're reading, especially if it's like an adventure type story, you picture what you're reading?
Yeah, I think maybe just because naturally I'm very visual, I think that happened quite a bit.
Oh, I am very much the same way, especially if there was a movie version of it and then I read the book. I kind of picture the scenes in my head.
Yeah.
But even without a film to base it on,
Yeah.
I often, like as the book is describing the scenery, I picture that scenery, or oftentimes, depending on what type of story it is, I might picture myself as one of the characters.
Yeah. And then there's a story after that kind of picks up off of the heels of the previous one, and this one is called Arthur's Faraway Friend. And basically, Arthur and Buster are inspired to write their own version of the book that Buster's gotten into. But Buster has plans to travel with his divorced dad for a couple months. And Arthur kind of has a tough time kind of breaking apart from him for a while. But Buster kind of updates him, kind of tells him about what he's seeing, what he's doing while he's away. And so, in a way, it works out.
Yeah, and I can't necessarily say myself that I've had too many friends that I was still in frequent communication with that moved to a far-off land, as it were. But I definitely have had family do that.
Yeah.
My siblings, when they moved away, my mom. So I definitely understood the feeling of that type of thing happening. And, of course, my mom's friends, after she moved, they definitely would talk about how much they missed her. At least in this case, Buster eventually does come back.
Yeah.
Like, he's not gone forever.
Yeah.
But even then, that doesn't negate the fact that being away from one of your closest friends can really hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have Arthur and the Square Dance, which I believe is based on an Arthur book titled Who's in Love with Arthur. And again, the setup is a square dance for gym class or whatever, while the weather is rainy. And for whatever reason, that's not exactly specified, Francine is turning down offers to, like, switch partners or whatever. She wants to stick with Arthur, which leads Binky to make an assumption or whatever that Francine is interested in him romantically. And so Arthur naturally gets pretty awkward, anxious, and Francine doesn't know what to make of his reactions, and Prunella suggests it's probably romantic feelings. So just a simple little miscommunication kind of weaves a tangled web for a while.
It definitely does. And I think the reason why this whole plot got rolling is because when they were square dancing, if I recall correctly, Binky was just not that good at it, which is why Francine did not want to switch to be his partner.
Yeah, at one point early on, Binky sends, like, everybody falling over like dominoes.
I think he was, like, picking one of them up and spun them around, or he was going too fast or something like that.
Or, yeah, I don't remember what.
But regardless, he does that speculation, and Arthur kind of questions it, but he's still kind of like, I don't know. But then I believe there was a scene where, since she is his dance partner, she ends up getting both of them some type of square dancing hat. And at first he's kind of rolling along with it, but then once he sees everyone else watching, he's like, okay, I'm walking out of this situation.
Yeah. It's kind of like their equivalent of the friendship bracelet or something.
Yeah, pretty similar to that. And eventually they do switch partners briefly, yet they still end up conjoined in this bridge thing they're doing that people walk underneath. And they both say at the same time, I am not in love with you.
Yeah. So it all gets out. Yeah.
But it's still made awkward even after they say that, because they end up talking for a little bit longer, and then they're the only ones still standing like that, hands intertwined, and it's just like, okay, let's not let something like this get in the way of our friendship again.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have much experience with square or line dance?
Not really. I do remember trying line dancing with some high school friends once, but that was about it.
Yeah.
I do have some experiences of when I might talk to a girl just casually, and other people would end up messing with me, kind of like nudging my shoulder, being like, do you like her?
Oh, gee.
It happened way too much.
That's happened to you a lot?
Yeah, especially in middle school or maybe early high school, but that was around the time where, people start to develop romantic feelings or something similar, so it doesn't surprise me too much.
Well, yeah, well, boys typically don't mature to, like, the end of middle school, so...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but, I've had some pretty good experience with square and line dancing. My most memorable experience being during our Beauty and the Beast season. A bunch of us, for a friend's birthday celebration, went to a barn a little a ways from home, and they had organized square and line dancing, and it taught me definitely a lot about square dancing. I don't know if I've retained it that much, but it was pretty fun. And then I remember when we were doing Joseph and thinking, oh man, but this friend of ours is really going to like this because we have a little square or line country dance number in it.
That is very true, now that I think about it, because we've talked about how Joseph brings in a bunch of different genres and styles, and One More Angel in Heaven has like this whole hoedown line dance type of sequence anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but that was probably one of my favorite parts of it.
I can definitely see why, because like I wasn't in the song, but I would be off stage kind of watching it happen, and it looked like so much fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely was difficult to learn, I won't lie, but it was still fun.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And then we have Water and the Brain, which taps into Brain's apparent hydrophobia, or fear of water. Yeah. Which is revealed when the Brain is excluded from a water amusement park party. But Arthur and Binky basically try to help him overcome this fear so he can be a part of the fun too.
Which is very respectable. And granted, usually when someone has that level of fear, you don't want to force it on them in one go. There's a lot of different methods that can be used to help someone get over their fear. And one of the most common ones is like consistent subjecting to whatever that fear is.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I have a fear of bugs. So what I probably would end up doing if I wanted to really put in the time to overcome this is they would probably, if I had to guess, put me in a room filled with them or put me in close proximity to them in some way, to the point where eventually I'm just thinking, oh, more bugs, that's cool, instead of freaking out.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's said you can't really overcome a fear without facing it head on, and I guess that's kind of the message of this one.
Yeah, and I would definitely say that is the message, but I'll still emphasize that it doesn't typically happen with the flip of a switch.
Oh, no.
It can take time.
Yeah, sure. And then we have Arthur the Unfunny, in which a lot of people in town are trying to raise money for the local library. And Muffy's plan is to have a fundraiser carnival. And she's trying to figure out, some kind of entertainment, some activities and stuff that might draw people in. And Arthur suggests doing a clown act. And so they like the idea. Yeah. And kind of Arthur's kind of telling them some like comedy that he's learned, and they don't find it very funny, and they figure Arthur probably doesn't have the gift of humor. But and so that makes Arthur kind of insecure or not feeling so well, and kind of drives him a little bit to prove himself.
Yeah, comedy is one of those things where you can learn how to tell a good joke or a good story with humor in it, but there are just some people out there that it just seems like they can make anything sound hilarious. Robin Williams, prime example.
Yeah.
Like anything that pops out of the top of his head, he could make into a joke. A lot of people point to the combo of Patrick Warburton and Eartha Kitt from Emperor's New Groove. It's like a lot of people love that movie solely because of how funny those guys are.
Yeah, I think when I was like late in high school, maybe into college, I really started to get really, really super into stand-up comedians.
Mm-hmm.
And on occasion, I would maybe try to write my own material or recreate some material I heard, and I think it was just kind of an insecure, maybe I am still, but still maybe probably not as much, but still I was I don't know. I guess either that or was just really invested in it so much, and I just I don't know. I guess I just really liked it a lot.
Would you say you have a favorite comedian or multiple favorites?
I mean, I like comedians like Jeff Foxworthy, Bill Engvall, and I really, when I was younger, really got into like Sinbad and Bill Cosby before his big downfall. But,
Yeah.
yeah, those were probably the big ones.
And for those who may not know the name Jeff Foxworthy right away, you've probably heard him say before at least once, "You might be a redneck."
Right.
That's one of his popular bits, as it were. And some of my personal favorites would be like John Panette, Brian Regan. Those are a couple of good ones.
Yeah.
In terms of modern ones, because at least John Panette, he passed away a while ago, unfortunately. But John Crist, every once in a while, I'll listen to.
Oh yeah.
He has this section in one of his comedic bits where he lists off a bunch of things that people weren't allowed to watch as kids and some of the ridiculous reasons for it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen that one. That's very good.
Oh yeah, I love that one so much. But basic point is, comedy is a lot of fun to do, but if you're not like naturally good at it, it can be tricky to learn. It's worth it, but it takes a lot of steps.
I've heard it described as a most subjective art form. Like, not the same kind of humor is really going to click with everybody. And that's kind of what Arthur discovers in the end, as he's kind of trying to figure out where his place is in this show. And then he sees how, without even trying that hard, he's able to impress or entertain the crowd somewhat.
Which I guess kind of sends the message of just be yourself. Because a lot of times with humor, if you try to force it, it's not going to come across the way you hope.
Yeah. Yeah. But then again, well, moving on. Sue Ellen's Lost Diary is the next story, in which Sue Ellen loses track of her diary, and few other kids team up to find it, and they're not sure if they should look. Maybe they're thinking there are some undisclosed thoughts about them in there, or maybe they should just give it to her without peeking. Yeah, honestly, this is one of those that I don't have as good a memory of, but
I don't remember this one too fondly. I do remember one episode where she had a journal or a diary or something to that effect that got burnt in a fire.
Oh yeah, I believe that was the April 9th fire.
Yes.
Yeah, and part 2, I think, concluded with her writing a new entry.
Yeah, that one I remember more vividly.
Yeah.
With this one, of course they're all speculating.
Yeah.
But it's one of those episodes that I believe tries to teach that you should respect someone else's privacy.
Yeah.
Like, trying to go into someone's private notes just because you're speculating that maybe they're writing something about you is not usually encouraged.
Yeah, it can be tempting because, when you realize someone's got some secret thoughts secretly written down, and that can kind of mess with people's head, are there things maybe they've got a beef with me about that they're not telling me to my face or something, because that can happen too.
Oh yeah, and for many, even just the thrill of the mystery can drive a person to either keep the mystery alive or find a way to solve it.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
Yeah.
they do at least try to help her, which is respectable.
Yeah.
Just, I don't remember if they did end up finding out what was in it or not, but And even trying to find out, it's like, okay, that's a little bit of a breach of her privacy, so maybe don't do that.
Yeah. But then we continue on with Arthur's knee, which has probably one of the most interesting cold opens because it cold opens with basically personified versions of Arthur's various basic internal organs. And they're all being introduced, what they're there for, and they're kind of given like their own unique voices and personalities, which makes it kind of fun.
And the premise is that he goes somewhere his parents told him not to. In this case, it's the town dump. And I believe he was trying to scavenge some loose items that were there.
Yeah, a wheel for a chariot.
Right. But in the process, he slips, and then I believe he cuts his knee on the lid of a metal can.
Yeah, it was on a can, yeah.
So he drops the wheel, and this is one of the few times, I believe, in the show where you actually see blood. It's not a lot, it's just like a red splotch, but still. And at this point, he's thinking, okay, I know I wasn't supposed to be here, but now I've got to find a way to hide this, otherwise they'll discover me.
Yeah.
However, I believe it's the brain and even his sister that are like, you should probably just tell them, as much as it's probably going to suck. If you let this wound play out, you could endure something worse.
Yeah.
Which really is important. It's like, yeah, all of us, I'm sure, in our lives at some point will do something our parents told us not to do for a specific reason, and then that reason ends up happening when we do it, and then it'll be like, this is what I was trying to warn you about.
It's left unclear, honestly, what his parents' reasoning for was. My first guess was because of fear of injury, but, well, of course, which of course happened, but, yeah. It's similar to the earlier episode we discussed before, Arthur the Wrecker, where he does something he's been told not to, and then tries to cover it up out of fear of being scolded or whatever horrible consequence. But ultimately he comes to the conclusion that I can't hide this forever. I've got to come clean.
Yeah, which is... It's what you're supposed to do. As much as a lot of people don't like to admit that they did something wrong, especially after they were told not to do that thing, honesty is typically the best policy.
Yeah, similar to the SpongeBob episode Hooky, where SpongeBob kind of hides that he was playing on the hook for a little bit, or denies it for a little bit, but he cracks and breaks down.
And he was very fortunate in his case, because at first he, even when he was hooked, was like, no, I didn't play around the hooks, but he basically admitted it right around the time where he thought it was too late, only to discover that the hook he was attached to was being manipulated by Squidward in a form of like teaching him a lesson of what can happen and how scary it is when you think you can't get off the hook. In this case, literally.
And then the next story is Grandma Thora Appreciation Day, where Arthur and DW, upon visiting their grandma, basically feel like she's in a pretty depressing condition of life because of things like food limits and false teeth and stuff, and so they attempt to kind of lift her spirits up by organizing a little surprise party.
Which is very respectable, because a lot of people don't realize just how loving and important grandparents are. I definitely try to make sure I call my grandparents every once in a while just to see how they're doing and make sure they know I'm thinking of them. And in this episode, they do plan this party, and I don't even think they squabble that much in the process of doing so.
Yeah.
The problem is, after they put this party together, they forget to grab her.
Yeah. Yeah. At one point, they even struggle to figure out how to bake a cake, I think, too.
Which is, oddly enough, not the first time I've seen something like that happen.
Yeah.
Like when we did Mary Poppins, there's a whole scene dedicated to the kids trying to spontaneously make a cake despite not knowing how to.
Yeah.
Which also creates some cartoony hijinks.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't underestimate the value of good grandparents. I know. Me and my dad would visit his dad quite a few times in his last couple years until he passed away about, I think it was a year and a half ago, about. And then, then when we buried him, we sang like his favorite hymns and kind of really put things, I think, more or less into perspective for me. Just seeing the kind of man of faith he was, and and just on the drive home, I was thinking about, when Solomon said, better to go to a funeral than to a party because funerals kind of put things more in perspective or whatever.
And it's like SpongeBob once said,
older people are the greatest. They're full of wisdom and experience.
Sure, yeah. And then we have a story that focuses on a character that probably has not been very front and center before this. Specifically, the character of Fern, and the story of Fern's slumber party, which explores more of her introverted personality, her kind of awkward speech anxiety or whatever. But her mom is hoping to help break her more out of her shell by organizing a slumber party with some of the girls at their house. And Fern is feeling like it's not going to go well. Everyone's going to be bored, and for a while they are. But then something unexpected happens, which allows her to channel her inner Sherlock Holmes, and she kind of uses that to kind of help solve a mystery, and she gets some applause for it.
yeah, I definitely get where she's coming from. Especially before joining Artists Unlimited, I was very introverted. Like, I would not speak to most people and just kind of keep to myself. And I found that a few people, even a lot of people who are introverted, you just got to find the right spot in their life to kind of connect with them, and then a lot of times they will open up.
Yeah.
And in Fern's case, one of the things she's really into is detective-based stuff, whether it be
Right.
stories or acting like she is a detective.
Yeah.
There's this whole episode later on where she writes back and forth with an author of one of her favorite detective stories.
Right. The fictional version of Lemony Snicket.
Mm-hmm. And in this case, her love for detective things really helped save the slumber party.
Yeah.
And it also kind of teaches that in almost a literal sense here, you can't judge a book by its cover. Because they're all thinking even before the party starts, this is going to suck. We're not going to really have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But, once her detective side comes out, it really opens their eyes.
Yeah. You would definitely get to see a more confident side of Fern in this one. Get to see, kind of break out of her shell a bit more, be a little bit braver, and really show, how smart and how skilled she is.
It's like if you can get them talking about something they're passionate about, they will often open up a lot faster. For example, most people who know me know that I really enjoy the Sonic franchise.
Yeah.
And I remember in years past, I would not speak much, but if somebody were to talk to me about Sonic, I could go on and on about it.
Yeah. I think that's the best connection, finding some sort of common ground. Like I've connected since Artists Unlimited with some other kids who aren't even involved in the program over an interest or fascination with musical theater. I knew, some kids I've gone to school with who were in the theater department themselves, and so now I can more confidently talk more about it with them, or like the musical movies that I've been seeing, and yeah, it's a pretty good icebreaker, I think.
And as we've mentioned, if you can break that ice, you can really get the snowball rolling, as it were.
Yeah. And then we have a story called Love Notes for Muffy. Yeah, which involves a sort of science fair. And Brain is super convinced that she is going to win the whole thing. Muffy is going to win the whole thing illegitimately because of her bribery. Because in the Brain's mind, her project isn't that scientific or of much scientific value, at least compared to his. He thinks he deserves more than she does. And so he comes up with a bit of a trick, a bit of a deception to avenge what he believes is an injustice. And teaming up with Francine, the two of them create fake love notes from an anonymous, non-existent secret admirer.
Yeah, this is one of the first of a few episodes that I can think of where Muffy either tries to win a contest or get noticed in some big event by some illegitimate means. In this case, she tries to bribe the judges. And I remember at least one moment in this episode where she'd be reading one of those notes and she started to picture who she thinks might have been writing it as they were saying it.
Yeah. Like something out of a fairy tale movie like Sleeping Beauty or something.
Like there was one where she had envisioned a guy that was kind of athletically built, sitting on the edge of a pool just saying, "I think about you every day." And I think she's like, maybe he's in the 5th grade. To which I believe it was Prunella who says something like, any 5th grader who writes like that is nuts.
Yeah. In this day and age, it's considered even more creepy.
Yeah, it was a lot more common when we were younger for people to write notes to each other. But nowadays, if a guy tries to say something like that or write something like that to a girl, then they might find it kind of alarming.
Yeah. Yeah. Some days I just might have to bite my tongue.
Yeah, that has been an issue as we've gotten older, where we find it difficult to compliment a girl or a woman, whatever the case may be, because we're afraid that it will be taken the wrong way.
Or we're just shy to say what we really feel.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the reasons might be good, the timing's too soon or something. Yeah, but it's affection stuff like that. It's tricky.
It definitely can, and even there are times where we will say something nice to a lady just to be nice and we legitimately mean what we say,
Yeah.
but they'll just assume, or someone else will assume, that we're just hitting on them.
Oh yeah.
No, we're just trying to make you feel good. We're trying to just say something nice because we can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's tricky.
Very
Naturally,
much so. Walking on eggshells.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, Muffy naturally falls for it. And but for some reason, kind of after for some reason, it doesn't quite go as planned according to the description. Don't forget exactly how it don't remember how exactly it goes awry, but yeah. But from the description here, it goes in ways that the schemers don't intend, which reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen the Full House episode, literally titled Secret Admirer, where somebody writes a note and it keeps landing into wrong hands and they come to the wrong conclusions. They think this person or that person wrote it to them, and you can hear everyone's inner thoughts. It's a pretty fun kind of seeing the chain reaction that results from that.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of Full House, but that episode does sound at least vaguely familiar, or maybe it's just because we were talking about this episode. And yeah, I don't remember exactly how this particular episode ends, but I feel like she ends up flipping the script on them in some way. I don't remember if she wrote notes back to them to make them think someone was admiring them, but somehow she ends up turning the situation in her favor.
Well, it does resolve actually with her maybe in the end thinking she won the fair, but declining the prize, and then it turns out she didn't even get named the winner. Somebody else did.
You know, now that you say that, that does sound right. Maybe I'll watch that episode after this just to kind of refresh my memory.
Yeah. And then we have 16b, DW blows the whistle, in which at some like kids event at the library, a local first response officer gives DW a safety whistle, and it proves useful, and she uses it for good a time or two, but then she kind of becomes obsessive and polices like every little thing, most every little thing she sees as a hazard, even if it's something that's not that big a deal, super trivial.
Yeah, at first it wasn't too bad, but she easily gets carried away with it. And I remember, even as a kid, watching this episode, there's a moment where she goes, "Better safe than sorry," that's what I always say. And I kept thinking, you've literally never said that before.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets to the point where, as I've heard it described, right, like, even not living is safe. Like, every little thing is criticized.
Oh yeah, she really lets it go to her head, and it gets to the point where she's out in public as her brother is in this...
It's kind of like a soapbox
race
thing.
Or
like a soapbox rally type thing.
Something like that, yeah. And she's surrounded by tall people, so she gets the quote-unquote brilliant idea to climb to the top of a really tall tree. And it immediately starts swaying back and forth, and she's worried she'll fall. So it kind of puts an ironic twist on the whole situation where she's policing everybody, even if they do the slightest thing that looks dangerous, only to do something very risky herself.
Yeah. Her reasoning is, if I can't see anybody, then I can't see if people are safe or not. But yeah, it's kind of ironic. She ends up doing probably the worst thing she could do.
And she ends up getting saved by a firefighter who climbs up to bring her down.
Yeah.
And once everything is resolved, she sees that Arthur is about to start the race without his helmet buckled. And she's about to blow her whistle. But at that point, she's figured, okay, yeah, maybe I'm doing this too much. So she just walks over to him and whispers in his ear.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, something else. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
And then we have Francine redecorates, which is a kind of a classic sibling rivalry story from the description I've seen in here. Francine and Catherine want to each have their own space, and so Catherine takes the living room. But then they figure it's like not the same, or they can't really get comfortable with their new situation, and so they figure out how they can coexist as roommates again eventually.
Yeah, in terms of what they want to do with their individual spaces, Francine wants to put decor in her space that her sister finds kind of creepy. Whereas Francine, I believe, thinks what her sister wants is too delicate, too girly.
Right.
And I will say, when I was growing up, I did share a room for a while with my brother. And I really don't think we had too many issues with who had what where in the room. Like, we had our own dressers, we had our own closet space, and we had a bunk bed, so we weren't like directly next to each other and constantly subjected to what the other one might have been doing at any given point. So I kind of understand how it is to share a room with a sibling, but not like this, because my brother and I really did get along for the most part.
Yeah, pretty much same here. My brother and I roomed for a while when we were very young. And, I feel like maybe the reason, it wasn't that difficult for us was because, well, at least not, maybe not mostly difficult, was because, we were more or less doing a lot of the same things, watching a lot of the same things, and yeah, so I figured, yeah, pretty much similar to you. It wasn't really that complicated.
Yeah, we were very fortunate and blessed with good siblings, to be sure.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, I think Catherine is kind of like Fern in that, maybe even more so, in that she doesn't show up that often.
Yeah.
Like, she sometimes is, as like a background character, but there aren't too many episodes that focus on her.
Yeah, from what I know, yeah, there aren't that many.
Like, usually if she is featured, so is the rest of the family. Like, I know there's at least one episode where they're all together celebrating Hanukkah, because it turns out Francine's family is Jewish.
Right, yeah. And next we have Arthur the Loser, which centers around a fictional trivia board game, which is kind of more or less like their version of like Trivial Pursuit or something. And after Arthur sees it advertised on TV, he really wants it. He gathers up the money he needs for it, buys his own copy of it, and starts playing it with several friends of his, but keeps losing and losing and losing again and again and again, and taking loses at other games like bowling after that, he becomes so like depressed or frustrated by this. Well, but then he decides, there's a way I can kind of rig the system and maybe actually get a win on the board if I just find the easy question cards and memorize the answers from those, which ends up working out in his favor, and which 180 flips his streak to a win and win and win again and again streak.
And it gets to the point where instead of a sore loser, they refer to him as a sore winner, because he's constantly winning, and he's kind of letting it go to his head. And it gets to where they really don't want to play with him anymore, considering how he's acting and the fact that he's always winning. So to not lose his friends, he tries to sabotage himself by giving someone else, in this case Binky, all the easy questions. And as Binky wins, he accidentally reveals that he had a bunch of cards up his shirt.
Yeah. No. It's implied that that the whole Binky thing was actually a scheme against Arthur to kind of avenge his sour attitude, whatever. And then but then Arthur catches on, like, everyone's rooting against me. And then he realizes, oh, man, I've alienated myself. And now I gotta figure out a way to make this right.
Which he still doesn't do correctly, because, even though he's making it basically impossible for himself to win, it's still a dishonest form of play. But, they eventually reconcile like they usually do in most episodes.
Yeah.
And I kind of get where he's coming from throughout this episode, because I do have a bit of a competitive side to me.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's a bit of a bummer when I lose, but
Sure, yeah.
at the same time, I wouldn't resort to cheating like this.
Yeah. It's easy. I think it's harder when you're good at something, like you know a game so well. You feel like you're the smartest person in the room, and you feel like you just know what to do. You can't be stopped, but someone might have a better system or better strategy, or just be really, really as good as you, and they can take you down.
Yeah, and it kind of goes to show that even when you get really good at something, there's a good chance that there's at least one person who's still better,
Yeah.
which in a way can actually serve as a motivation to improve. I know that's not necessarily what this episode was aiming for, but you can pull a lot out of it.
Yeah. And then there's an episode which touches on how young people can be very gullible. They'll believe just about anything they're told or anything they hear, which is established really well in the cold open. Arthur explaining how he's tricked EW into believing these bizarre things, like how you could go down the bathtub drain, or sweaters, or like savage animals, and she'll totally believe those things.
Yeah, when you're younger, you are definitely more subjected to believing a lot of what you hear.
Yeah. So in the episode proper, which is titled Arthur versus the Very Mean Crossing Guard, Arthur and the Brain are like walking from school or whatever, and they run into this crossing guard who's substituting for the one they're used to seeing, and basically tells them, to cross the street, it costs $10, which he means as a joke, but they don't quite pick up on it. And he kind of pushes the humor further, like saying, he's going to send some goons to like discipline this crime, whatever. And so Arthur and the Brain are trying to figure out some creative way around it, and because they're legitimately freaked out.
And it does make me think, what kind of city is this where people as young as being in 3rd grade are able to walk through a city by themselves? Because I couldn't even walk around my block until I was of a certain age. But it's like, they're able to walk through the city, and then they run into this guy that they don't know who's pulling this stunt. So they're like, not only is he mean, he's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's explained it was all meant as a playful little joke at the end, but, but the two kids, they couldn't really understand that at first.
Right, and there are a lot of times, especially in real life, where a joke or a prank can end up taking things too far, even if it wasn't intentional.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like anytime you want to do that, just obviously be very careful.
Yeah. But then we have perhaps one of the most infamous episodes, probably one of the ones that really made viewers annoyed with DW. It's titled DW's Very Bad Mood. And it focuses on DW, kind of mostly verbally raging for a long period of time, very unusually loud and aggressive, abrasive, for some unknown reason, and Francine is determined to figure out where this is coming from.
And it is revealed eventually, and we'll get to that. And I even have had people compare her in this episode to Caillou, which is another infamous cartoon character who pretty much acts the way she is in this episode all the time. Like, he's infamous for constantly getting upset, even over the most trivial things. But in this episode, we find out later, through some sleuthing of these characters, that the reason she's so upset is because she wasn't invited to a friend's party.
Yeah, and I think she implies what really bothered her about that was because this is a popular kid, and Emily, her friend, is kind of like the Miss Perfect public image, as we kind of talked about, as we saw with the gymnastics episode. And she even has a savage daydream toward the end, and where she pilots a Zeppelin and makes it literally rain on the party. Yeah. When she's really angry about something, she can get real savage like that.
Oh, yeah. And she decides, she's going to, by sheer coincidence, show up to the same place where the party is, which is like a movie theater, and just cause problems for them, try to annoy them. Eventually, it does still work out in her favor, because Francine, after realizing what's going on, decides to invite her to her party.
Yeah, which Arthur isn't too thrilled about because, well,
the little sister getting what she wants and all that.
But then we have another DW-centric story right after that. DW's Name Game, in which Arthur and DW are having yet another argument. And they actually take a bit of a creative approach because, Catherine, Francine's older sister, is babysitting them, and she's got her thesaurus out. She's got her thesaurus out for English homework or studying whatever. And they ask her for, synonyms for words or whatever descriptions they think of each other. Yeah, it's kind of funny how Catherine never picks up on what they're actually doing. She kind of just brushes off as, you're learning your vocabulary. That's cool.
And for me, this episode kind of shows what happens when people try to one-up each other too much. Sometimes, some sibling rivalry or friendly competition can be good. But in this case, they're just calling each other names back and forth constantly, trying to come up with something that was worse than the last one.
Yeah.
And in this case, it can be really dangerous because it can easily lead to something being said that you can't take back.
Yeah. And DW eventually has a sort of nightmare, which is set primarily in the local library, that kind of ends with something terrible happening to Arthur because of the conflict they've been having.
And it gets to where one of the times that, yeah, they often do annoy each other, but deeper down, they do care for each other.
Yeah.
They just don't always know how to show it outwardly.
Yeah. But then we have finders keepers, spelled Keypers, and that is because this story involves Arthur, Binky, and the Brain finding a key while looking for something. And they each imagine what this key might be, what it might do. And so they all want it. They want the power, they want the glory, whatever comes with it. And so they're all fighting with each other over it. But then it turns out it actually is for something that's not quite as interesting. Yeah. Again, I'm just going off of the description I've got on my phone here, but
they do try to resolve the tension between them at some point by splitting it three ways. I believe they even say, let's split it 50-50-50, which of course doesn't work because usually it's just 50-50 between two people, half and half.
yeah, that's not even mathematically correct. It'd be like 33-33-33. But preaching to the choir maybe, but
again, they're in third grade. They're not necessarily required to come up with something super complex. And even then, it still doesn't quite work. Because, like, when one of them has it, like, they find it very difficult to give it back. But then they at least tried to come up with a solution before it got too intense. So I gotta give them points for that.
yeah. And for ultimately not keeping it before they know what it is, because someone else might own it and need it.
That is another thing, yeah. I don't know if they considered for a while, like, maybe this key belongs to someone else, and they're stressing out trying to find it.
Yeah, but anyway. Next, we have How the Cookie Crumbles, which follows a traditional festival in Elwood City called the Strawberry Festival, which is like all strawberry themed, like refreshments and activities. Yeah. And so it really is kind of sort of community pride thing, which is cool because I've gone to like some good festivals here in town, which in fairs. So this is kind of a fun story. Anyway.
Yeah, even a village that is not too far from us has its own fruit-themed festival, in this case, apples.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not the only thing they focus on, but it is one of the main themes. And I make sure to go every year, especially now, because there was always one thing that my mom and I would get every year that we went. It was a type of pie called bumbleberry, which was like a mix of different berries put in. It's really good.
Oh.
So if anyone is near where we are and they want to go to this apple festival, it's usually the first weekend of October. And they have a lot of interesting things there.
Yeah.
But for this episode, like you said, it's centered around strawberries. And this is one of the episodes I was kind of thinking of when I was saying that Muffy will sometimes try to win something or stand out in a big event through illegitimate means. Because the recipes that she's passing out were not hers, but she still tries to take credit for it.
Yeah. Not entirely hers anyway.
Right. Like, it was a group effort,
Yeah.
but she keeps saying, oh, it was me, I did this.
Yeah.
And, the people are getting frustrated with her, and eventually she does come clean saying, yeah, this isn't just mine, and I believe what she ends up doing is she advertises it with a group photo to indicate that it was a group effort.
Or I believe she made the cookies like in the likeness of all the other kids and herself. But that might have been after she admitted that she couldn't make the recipe on her own because she couldn't remember it. Because she had tried to do it on her own but failed miserably multiple times, and now she desperately is seeking their help.
And eventually once again, they do make up, they do become friends again and not mad at each other.
Yeah.
And what I, in a twisted way, kind of like, is that there's another episode later on where she's showcasing a lot of things that were built. She takes credit for initially, even though most of them were created by her butler. And even the one that she did build herself was based on an idea from him. So in a weird twisted way, I kind of like how this isn't the only time she has an episode like this. Because it's like, yeah, people aren't always going to learn their lesson the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. But in this case, she does learn a valuable lesson.
Oh, of course. Which is something you'll often find in a PBS show like this, is that a lot of the episodes will have some type of moral or teach an important lesson for the young, growing audience watching the show.
Yeah. And then the second season concludes with Sue Ellen's little sister. Sue Ellen, basically the anthropomorphic, however you say it, cat, is an only child, and so she kind of feels like very alone, feeling left out, and so she kind of tries to find a pretend sibling, but that doesn't go too well. She realizes it's not as easy as she thought it would be, or whatever. But eventually she does find an overseas pen pal, which is, I guess, kind of like a sibling.
Yeah, this is one of those be careful what you wish for moments. It's like, yeah, a lot of people who are only children do wish they had a sibling. Like, for many years, even though I have a couple of my own, I always wondered what it would be like to have a younger sibling. But after seeing episodes like this, it's like, you know what, I'm okay with where I am. And especially since her quote-unquote little sister for a while was Arthur's sister, it's like she definitely had her hands full.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she's probably more patient with her than Arthur ever is, but...
Well, that's probably, if I had to guess, also because she's not constantly subjected to her like Arthur is.
Right, sure.
And as a side note, I think the word you were looking for is anthropomorphic.
Yeah. I might have to practice that a little bit or something.
It is a tricky word to say when you first hear about it, but for those who may not even know what that word means, anthropomorphic is kind of like something non-human having human features. Oftentimes it's an animal. For example, Sonic is a hedgehog, but he still walks and talks like a human does.
Or like, say, Goofy or Mickey.
Yeah, or even most of the characters in Arthur.
Yeah.
Like, even though there are actual dogs in this show, there are dog-like characters that still stand up on two legs and speak human speech.
Yeah. But anyway, that's pretty much all of the second season that we've covered, and so thanks for streaming. Continue to stream us on YouTube and YouTube Music, and share like your favorite Arthur memories, gags, episodes, whatever, and keep the conversation going.
Yeah, and if you have any ideas for future episodes, or if you have thoughts on any episodes we've talked about so far, let us know. If you have a favorite Arthur episode, whether it be one that we've talked about or not, we'd love to hear about that as well. Did you watch the entire show? Did you stop after a while, especially after you grew up a bit?
Yeah.
And if you have other shows and films you want us to talk about, we're always keeping our ears open for new ideas.
All right. Until next time, take care, everybody.
So long.